Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Thursday. It is May 3rd. This will be a chart lesson for the day, and this is going to wrap up our week as well. No chart lessons on Friday, so this is going to wrap the week up. We'll be back again. We won't be back again to do it till Monday, but this was an interesting day. We had a really strong sell-off here. We found some support, and then we had a really strong move back up, right back to where we kind of started the day off, and we just kind of went in a range from there. So the highs and lows here seem to be some pretty important price action. You see how many times we tested that in the afternoon. Most of it was after 2 o'clock, so you won't see much of it more any buys there. But we were just kind of going sideways here. And normally I wouldn't have many sales going up here, but we had some resistance here, and you got a shorter term trend line, and you really didn't have this bigger channel here confirmed on the trend line till after 2 o'clock. So once we got up here, it just looked more like, you can see it swinging back and forth above and below the EMA. So you'll notice some sales, and there's really more sales than there are buys up here, even though the big moves were all buys. So it was kind of a different afternoon, really. There's definitely an uptrend here, and it's real strong. You don't want to be selling any of this. But once we got up in here where the resistance was and kind of started going sideways, and prices are in this range and breaking above and below the EMA consistently, well, you can generally trade that both ways. So normally you wouldn't see a lot of sales up there like that, but I'll talk about them as we get to them. They'll make more sense. But that made it kind of an odd day, really. But let's back out here. We're going to back way out. Seems like the volatility was definitely back here a little bit lately. So you had to be patient this morning. I didn't see anything I liked until just after, it was well into the 8:30 open before I saw anything I liked. You'd notice you'd have this first leg down. So when we started lower here, you'd look for a possible measured move. And notice we did kind of try to bounce in there, but it just continued on. And at that point, I probably would have measured this leg. And I would look for, oops, of course I grabbed the wrong one. And then I would come over here and measure about right there. We didn't quite get there. Actually, if you measure from there, it's real close, but we still didn't get there. So that always tells you something. When you don't get that measured move, that's telling you something. So when you don't quite make it by 5 points or so, and you start reversing the other way, that means you're probably going to have a pretty good move the other direction. And we tried to come down once again once we had a break of this, and we just couldn't get below that support right there. We got below it for just a few minutes, and we never could breach that anymore this morning. And that's quickly reversed things and sent it up. So, but you had to be patient early on. Let's talk about these trades, and we'll kind of wrap the day up and wrap up the week. But when I came in 7 o'clock hour, we were kind of bouncing here. There's a little failed second entry short here, but you got this possible trend line that's looking really good here. And so I don't think you want to go long there, because that's the first break. You'd be better off to wait and look for a short back to ride it back down to a new low, and possibly looking for that measured leg down too as well. And so even though this does turn down and go up and gives you a second entry long and a failed second entry short, but look at, there's a bunch of congestion right there, a doji. It's all right into the EMA. This high is not very far. Even though it would have worked, you got to skip that. And so you're just kind of sitting here waiting. I don't like the signal bar here, and you're generally better off waiting on the lower high, which you got a little short-term trend line. You get your first break here in the lower high, and this actually, I don't know if you can see it or not, this actually broke higher and turned and went out the other side. I went back and forth about this one. We're probably going to push down and make a new low. You need one for both this and this trend line. And so what I'd probably do is let this break lower. I don't think I would trade that with a stop, but if it broke lower, I might put a limit order a tick or two back. And if it backs up, I would enter. And you could technically enter it with a stop, but I think it's a little dangerous. But it would have worked either way. But you got to be careful with those lows right across there. Generally, you're better off to wait and see if you get a little breakout, pull back short, and then guess what? It goes lower, pulls back. And notice if you didn't have enough room to get out, you would have gotten stopped out. But luckily, you do have enough room to get out. I just wouldn't enter that one unless I could enter it with a limit order. I'm going to leave it at that because it's really dangerous going short into those lows like that. Most of the time, it's going to bounce just like this, and a lot of times you won't get enough movement to get your scalp, and then it bounces, and then suddenly you get another turn down right off the EMA or another bearish bar, and you got a little breakout pull back short, and so hopefully you'll get another leg down, and this one turns into a pretty nice move. And there's one more right here, but again, it's right into the low of the day, and you don't have but a tick right there really. So I don't think you want to take that one. And you don't want to be going long here yet. You you really need a higher low or your reversal pattern, and you never get that here. It just takes off, and you're not that far away from the EMA. You're a little bit, but this is a second entry here. You could probably argue for that one to be green, but the fact that we're not back down to the lows, I actually drew this trend line right off here and then pulled it up, and I may have adjusted a little bit. I can't remember. Sometimes you'll have to adjust it because you don't know if it's off the closes or off the lows, so you might get your angle off just a little bit. But once you turn down, just kind of adjust it and see how it fits best on both sides, and then that generally you'll be in the right vicinity. And in that case, if you got it right on both sides pretty close is usually good enough. So but we get a second entry short here, right where you're kind of expecting, but more than anything, you got this resistance up here, and that's basically a double test. So I like that one. It's a little bit away from the EMA too. I mean, this one you could almost swing to being red, but generally you're almost always better to wait on that lower high. You get one here, but I don't like that signal bar. This signal bar is too big, and it's a little bit lower high there anyway, so this is really going to have to be your signal bar. And I don't think you want to enter right into those lows right across there. So wait and see if you get that the real true reversal pattern, and you get that little breakout pullback, failed second entry long, and it actually went higher and turns, it goes out the other side. Just go short right there. And this one, if you catch a runner, you can ride this one a long, long way. And notice that we're coming down, and you actually have a new high here because this is a double top, so you could count that when it broke higher as a higher high, so, or a new high. So first entry, then there's two legs down, a second entry long, it fails. But you don't want to be going short in the low of the day right there. And so I don't like that one. You get another little pull back that tests the midline when it goes through it and turns back down. But again, you're going short at the low of the day. You might have taken this one. It's a first entry, but notice that it's right at this midline and it's right at the bigger pattern midline, and it's only like 2 ticks, so you might take that one. I'll make it green. I actually like that trade, but experience and learning the hard way tells me don't take that one. But you do have enough room to get out. There's not a lot of movement here as far as corrections. It's pretty steep down, but we've been away from the EMA so long. And if you would have just sitting tight here, notice in a few minutes you come back and you get a failed second entry long, and you're back to the main trend line. You're back to the EMA basically. It goes higher, turns, it goes out the other side. Again, you got to go short low, but that's a lot easier to do off a key entry point right there. And that does confirm that trend line. And so that's better than going short right there, in my opinion, even though you're going short at the low of the day. If you've got this bigger channel right, we're probably headed down to here, to this line, and we're a long way away from that line. And if you catch this one and catch a runner here, you can ride this all the way down, and that's a nice move. I mean, that's from, just call that 26, we'll just call it 2602, and you ride that all the way down to 25, probably 95. So that's, that's 6 or 7 points right there on just a quick move down. Takes a few minutes. And then of course we bounce here. I wouldn't be necessarily looking for a long. You do get a reversal here, and it would have worked. But look how everything's still below the EMA, still below the midline, and you've got a close outside, so it could run up and touch that line and turn down. It would have gotten enough to work, but you're better off going short here. Look at this nice short setup. You got your close out. You got your close outside. It goes higher and it turns down instantly. Nice bearish bar, and off it goes. You get a lower high here, but I don't like that signal bar, and I don't like going short right into all those lows across there. And you get a little failed break lower. Pulls back. You get a first entry short. It goes above the EMA. You get a second entry short. It's crawling up that trend line. That trend line's holding. That's a failed second entry short. It's above the EMA. But more than anything, I like it because you got this support here. And you still got plenty of room for here. And the fact that we came up short right here, we're probably going to overshoot it that much as well. Or we might undershoot it. But either way, you still probably got enough room to get out here. And this turns out to be a fairly quick and easy scalp. And it actually pulls back one more time. And then it pulls back again here. So you might consider this a failed second entry short because that's close to a double bottom. Can never grab the one I want to grab. You can see that's close enough to call that a double bottom, but the fact is I don't want to take that right into the trend line because it may turn down there, may not go higher. So you got to be careful with that. And another thing I liked about this was a double test of that line. We touched it here and then test. Of course, we had several tests over here as well. There's actually a double test and a higher low right here, but we didn't have a break of this, and I wasn't sure, that I'd feel comfortable going long down here trying to pick a bottom. The fact that everything's still below the EMA right there, so but then you're taking off. I'd just wait here and see if you don't get a short opportunity. You get a close outside, move to a new high, and you could consider going short right there, but again, I think you ought to wait on the lower high. We'll make that one green because you're a good bit away from the EMA. And that's the first close outside of this trend line. And that's been a fairly strong move down. So you might go short right there. And it is a nice move. You get a lower high here, but look at all that congestion. That's a doji basically. So I wouldn't go short there. You get your failed second entry long right there. And it's holding on that trend line, confirms it. At this point, you figure as long as you got enough room to get out here, you're probably good taking it. And you actually have a tick or two to spare there, and it bounces, and then you get a second entry long right there, or a high or low, I guess I should say, and it ends up going right back into that resistance. I don't have my line there. Let me get that on there because that really makes a difference on this trade. So you got a second entry short, a double test of this, and you're looking for prices to try to make a new low. You got plenty of room to get out. You got to notice that low, first entry, second entry. I like going short there just to ride it back to here, and maybe it goes all the way down and makes a new low, but it doesn't. It bounces at that support again. So there's really strong support right there, and now you got another double test of that level again. But I don't like that signal bar. And it just takes off and it pulls back here, first entry, then there's second entry. But at that point, this looks like the upper side of the channel, and I'm not going long into that. And it wouldn't have worked. You probably would have got burned. I don't think it would have worked. There might be one. There might be enough to get out there, but I wouldn't take that trade. Or actually, here's where the failed second entry short was. Yeah, that definitely would have worked. You might have had to ride this back, but I think there's enough room even right there. But it's right into what looks like the upper side of the channel, so I'm not going to take that. Plus, you've got your close, and it may just push up one tick above that and turn down and give you a new high and turn down. But it ends up would have worked, but you don't know that ahead of time. And that you can't use that for a signal bar. Here's your high or low. That's a big bar, but hey, this thing's getting volatile, so you don't have any other option if you want to enter. And then there's your true failed second entry long. That's probably the better entry right there, but that looks pretty good. You finally pushed down and you made the low lower than two, kind of went through the EMA, pulls back, and this actually went higher and turns down. Didn't go all the way out the other side, but that's a big reversal and it closes very bearish. And you figure we're probably coming back to down here somewhere. You could have really adjusted this trend line by now, how it fits there. And that's how I did it and drug it down. And when it bounces right off of it, it's tempting to go long there. And it is, you actually had a second entry here, so it's not a second entry long, but it's bouncing where you would expect. And notice that prices just came back and tested this breakout area as well. And this thing takes off, but I can't justify going long right there. This is one of those you just watch it go without you. Unfortunately, you have to do that sometimes. And it pulls back here and gives you a failed second entry short. And so you might take that one. At this point, you might be thinking, hey, this is just a midline. But this still could be an overshoot, and it could push up and then turn down like it did here and go lower. But especially being that far away from the EMA, but you might risk it. And so I marked it green. That failed, and it went lower first and turned and went out the other side. That pattern has been good to us lately. Of course, that's not the ideal. Ideally, it's back closer to the EMA or right at the EMA when it turns back up or turns back down. Okay, I'm sorry I had a little interruption there. Probably didn't notice it on your end, but I can't remember. I think we left off with this trade. Then we went up and we actually got a measured move, equal distance move with it. Upper trend line. And of course, once prices were heading that way, you'd measure this and get an equal distance, and exactly it turns down to the tick. That tells you you're in pretty good place. I don't think you want to go short here. You probably want a reversal pattern because this thing has been fairly strong up to here, and we've been above the EMA a while. But you do get a reversal here, and normally I probably wouldn't mark this anyway, but there was all this resistance from earlier in the day. Let me go across here. You can see all that resistance right there. So when it turns down right at that same, it pushed through like a little failure, it turns back down and gives you that failed second entry long. I was pretty confident at that point that we would probably come back to the other side, but either way, you've got enough room back down to the midline if it only goes to there. So I like that one. And then it gives you another little lower high here, which really confirms this little spike. There's a little spike down, it goes into a channel. And so being off the key entry point, I like that one. I will say there's a limited amount of room here. So the only way I would enter this one would be to make sure you got enough room to get out for that double bottom. And the only way you could do that on mine was if it broke lower and you dropped a limit order or a tick or two back in. And you would have gotten filled on it. And it would have broke a little. You could have got filled all the way back up right to the EMA, and then it turns back down, and you would have gotten out. So that one, I wanted to mark that one green, but it's not really green. So I'm explaining that. If you just look at it red, it doesn't look right. But you had to use a limit order or get in a little, let it break lower and drop a limit order in a little further up, and that would have turned out to be a pretty good trade. It was only good for a scalp, but then it bounces. And so that's the first break of that little spiking channel. And then of course you make a double top here, and then you make a lower high. And it broke higher and turns back down. So I like going short there. Just looking for it to retest this low and hopefully maybe even go to the other side of the channel here. But again, it bounces. And when it bounced right here, notice how many times we bounced there. Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. So when you get a second entry long there, and this is looking like a trading range, you got resistance up here and you got support down here, and you got at least a double, triple test of that level right there, and it's the second entry long. It's a really nice bullish bar. I like going long there. You don't know that it's going to take off like that, but you're hoping it comes back to the other side, and that's likely where it's headed, is back to this side. I need to kind of drag that on across there. So that's kind of, again, like I said, this afternoon was kind of unique compared to what you would normally be doing on a trend up. You'd only be probably looking for longs, but you've got just as many shorts up here. And of course it does. It takes off, runs up, and so notice you go low once, you go low twice, and this was a little congestion. So this is like a little failed break lower. So when you got that second entry long right there and a double test of this breakout area here, I like going long just to see if it'll try to make a new high. It doesn't. It turns back down. And notice you get a first entry long, you pull back, you get a second entry long, it fails, and you get a big bearish bar, and you're back inside this little trading range. And you need to make sure you got enough room to get out before here. And so I like that one. Then it bounces again. You know, you would figure it would. Notice what it did this time. Instead of, when it came up short here, instead of going past it that much, it comes up short on the other side. And that's kind of what you would expect. And notice you did kind of have a close outside here and 2 legs down. So it's kind of playing out. I don't like going long there, even though there has been some support there. I think you need a higher low, and that doesn't come till up here, right? And that's kind of a breakout pull back there, but that bar is more bearish. And notice it doesn't go far, and then it gives you a lower high, but again, not a very good signal bar. Here's your reversal, and it broke higher first and turns back down. And you can hope to ride at least to here. And of course, that's where it goes before it bounces. And that gets you into the 2 o'clock hour. So, and there's actually a failed second entry long right here. And there's still room to get out, but you've already had your close outside this trend line and a new low. So that one's a little bit suspect that late in the day. I'll give it a green one. It probably warrants a green one, but I'd just be honest with you. That close to the 2 o'clock hour, just trying to pick up a little scalp back down to this lower end of this trading, you know, this support resistance area here, I'd probably skip that trade. But I'll go ahead and mark it green because it does, that pattern has been really good to us lately. But yeah, it was just kind of a different kind of day. And, you know, you're really hitting along the shorts hard, then suddenly you got to switch gears and and even though you're going higher here, this is not turned into a strong uptrend yet until right here. And so that's when you really want to switch gears. And then again, you come back to trading it both ways because you get into this resistance up here and you get stuck in a little trading range. You got a smaller one here and then it kind of gets bigger here. And you're just stuck in that trading range the rest of the afternoon. So it's a very unique kind of day. I'd almost call this a reversal day, but it's not really a reversal either because we didn't end up making a new high, but we did take back a lot of the early morning sell-off. So it's not really a range day. This is way too big almost to be a range. So it feels more like a reversal day than anything. So I don't really know how what would be the best characteristic of this type of day, how you would want to characterize it. But anyway, that's going to do it for today. That's going to do it for the week. We'll be back again to do it on Monday. But I'm done for today, done for this week. Hope you had a great week. Hope you have a good weekend. And we'll be back Monday. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com. And we'll see you next time.